The voice of the UK. 5 Live Breakfast.
Now, that little old mouse whistling there on a steamboat back in 1928 is now available to the public in the US. What does this mean? Well, it's the copyright on Steamboat Willie, a black and white short animation in which Mickey Mouse made his debut, has expired today. So what does this mean? Well, let's speak to a barrister that specialises in copyright and who helped take Peter Rabbit to Japan. Andrew Eborn is here. Morning, Andrew. Happy New Year.
Good morning and a very happy new year to you too, Johnny. What's interesting, it's not a very happy new year for Disney because, as you rightly say, they've lost the copyright. It's expired, basically, in their iconic depiction of Mickey Mouse. But it's the one dating all the way back to 1928 and Steamboat Willie. And everybody, if you haven't seen that movie, basically that was a nod to the title of Buster Keaton's film from earlier in the same year, which is called Steamboat Bill Jr. And what happened is it's all to do with copyright. Now, copyright is a bundle of different rights which creators get, which is the right to stop people copying your work. It's the right to make sure they can't adapt it and so on and so forth without your permission. And basically, Disney have been fighting for many years to extend the term of copyright because it doesn't go on forever. So there used to be what was called the Copyright Term Extension Act all the way back in 1998, or sometimes called the Sonny Bono Copyright Term Extension, and rather amusingly, the Mickey Mouse Protection Act. And what that did, it extended the term all the way to 95 years. This is for works which were done under corporate authorship, which happened to Mickey. They extended it to 95 years. And you can work it out very quickly that 1928 to all the way now, those 95 years are up.
Right.
And so that particular Mickey Mouse is indeed available.
It wasn't that there was some sort of admin error and somebody forgot to tick a box and send it off to the copyright offices. So is everything under this law then? Would we see all kinds of characters and Disney stuff eventually fall out of copyright and people be able to remake films? Right.
Absolutely. And I was speaking very recently about Winnie the Pooh, similar sort of thing, the early depictions of him. And it was childhood ruining when the original Winnie the Pooh went out of copyright because there was this horrible horror movie of Winnie the Pooh and, Honey and Horror, or Honey and Blood, I think they called it, which showed these sort of feral Winnie the Pooh together with Piglet going on this murder massacre. So that is the issue. But I think there's two important points to make here. Is firstly that it is only that depiction of Mickey Mouse. So it's the early 1928 Steamboat Willie working on that sort of premise. And so the modern versions obviously continue to enjoy copyright protection. The other point is that there are trademark protections for Disney, and they are notoriously litigious about making sure they protect, and quite rightly too, making sure that they protect their rights. And so when you get trademark protections, those don't expire. You basically can renew those for the relevant period of time. But what that does, it's about brand protection. So the right to slap the particular brand on merchandise, on theme parks and so on and so forth, all those different categories, those continue to subsist. And that's basically to protect that people don't get misled as to the origins of a particular mark.
So we wouldn't see a load of Steamboat Willie T-shirts popping up then and things like that?
Well, it's interesting, and you might, and this is what's going to happen. People are going to be trying to push it a little bit and try and say, well, what can we get away with? And I think that's the sort of key. Disney will be watching very, very carefully as to what people do. But I would urge that people should be checking themselves as to what they do with Steamboat Willie. But also, you mentioned about it's not the only one that's come out of copyright at the same time. You've got not just Steamboat Willie, but you've got Lady Chatterley's Lover. D.H. Lawrence has just come out under the same sort of principle. You've got the Threepenny Opera in the original German, that's finished, and Virginia Woolf's Orlando. So there could be lots and lots of these sort of issues. My best advice to anybody is if you are thinking about copyright or trying to use it in any particular way, do get in touch because getting your rights right is essential for any rights owner.
What happens? What happens if you're found to be breaking copyright or trademarks? What's the worst
Well, the great
penalty?
thing is, it's rather like any property law. It's equivalent to theft. So what they do, there are penalties that can be done, mainly sort of financial penalties. You're going to put them in the same position they would have been if they hadn't infringed those rights. You can also have what's called delivery up if there are infringing goods. In other words, if you print lots of T-shirts which have somebody's rights on it or a particular mark, then they could be delivered up and destroyed. So you don't just lose the licensing income, but you lose the manufacturing costs and everything else as well. So they're quite severe penalties, and I would urge everybody. It's a minefield. I know we do a merry dance on this glorious New Year's Day just to give the highlights, but it is a minefield, and people do need to tread incredibly carefully. The great news, however, is that every one of your glorious listeners is in fact a copyright owner, because everything that you write, which you create, which you come up with your own tunes, or you come up with particular artwork, you basically get the rights in those, and it gives you the exclusive right to make sure that nobody copies those works. Obviously, and I work with a wonderful artist called Eleanor Tomlinson, who I met on a BBC programme, another channel, and she was the one who came up with the iconic image of the Queen with Paddington Bear, you might remember, which was ripped off royally during that particular year. And I helped tidy up the rights for her. She's now got licensing deals around the world, is now doing very comfortably indeed. But it really was starting out and understanding what the rights are and making sure that they are adequately protected.
OK, good stuff. We know where to go if we need some advice. Thank you very much, Andrew. Andrew Eborn there, barrister that specialises in copyright. Be careful what you do with Steamboat Willie.
Yes, that's sage advice.